What fell in Roswell wasn't just a balloon, and the truth might shock you. Imagine this, it's 1947. The world is still trying to recover from the horror of World War II. The scars are open, the fears haven't healed, and to make things worse, a new tension is emerging. The Cold War. Two giants armed to the teeth, the United States and the Soviet Union, measuring forces, spying, testing nuclear weapons, and distrusting each other every second. Now, answer me this. Do you think that, in a scenario like this, anything different, any strange event, would be handled with transparency, or would it be swallowed by silence and by lies? And there's more. Roswell wasn't just any city. The only squadron on the planet that had ever dropped atomic bombs in combat was stationed there. The very one that destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Coincidence? Or the perfect place to hide something that shouldn't be seen by anyone? Oh, and it doesn't stop there. The region was close to secret nuclear test sites, underground explosions, radiation, projects that no one could know about. If you were in power and something inexplicable happened in this place, what would you do? Would you tell the world, or would you create the most convincing lie possible? Now, hold on to this question. What's more dangerous, an extraterrestrial secret, or the truth about what we really do here on Earth? Because this detail will connect with what you'll hear further on. But wait, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Because it all started with something so simple, it could have gone unnoticed. A farmer, an empty field, and wreckage that didn't seem to belong to this world. And that's where the story gets really weird. In the next part, you'll discover who was the first to see the remains of what might have been an alien spacecraft, and why this man regretted for the rest of his life having told what he saw. The initial accident and the discovery of the wreckage. Now imagine the scene. An isolated ranch. The silence broken only by the wind, and then, a violent storm lighting up the sky. The next morning, Mac Brazel, the ranch foreman, goes out to check the fences. He walks, the ground still damp, and then, something catches his attention. What would you do if you found something that shouldn't be there? Something that doesn't seem to be of this world? Mac comes across pieces scattered over a long stretch of the land. But they aren't common pieces. He picks one up in his hands, and feels something strange. The material is light, absurdly light, but at the same time strong like metal. Even stranger, he crushes it with his fingers, and, as if it had a life of its own, the fragment returns to its original shape, without a single mark. Stop for a second and think. In 1947, nothing like this existed. No known human technology could do something like that. So, where did it come from? From an experimental craft? From a secret military prototype? Or, from somewhere beyond Earth? And here the web begins. Brazel tells acquaintances, seems like a good idea, doesn't it? But little did he know that, from that moment on, his life would change forever. Because soon after, the military arrives. They take control. The ranch becomes a forbidden territory, and at the center of this operation, a man who will become a key piece in the greatest mystery of ufology. Jesse Marcel, an intelligence officer. He collects the material, he analyzes it. And, years later, he would confess something you need to hear. What he saw there was not of this world. But pay attention. This would only come to light decades later. Now, I want you to ask yourself, why would a simple piece of metal make the army act as if it were a nuclear secret? Why wasn't this material shown to the public? And most importantly, what was there, along with this wreckage, just metal? Or something more? Hold on to that question. Because, the next day, newspapers all over the world would publish a historic headline. Army captures flying saucer in Roswell. Yes, they said that. But a day later, they backtracked with an explanation that would make anyone doubt. And that is exactly what we're going to see now. How the greatest mystery of the century began with the truth printed in bold letters, only to be buried under a lie that lasted more than 30 years. Official communication and the great cover-up. Now imagine waking up on July 8, 1947, and seeing this plastered in the newspapers. Army captures flying saucer in Roswell. It's not a rumor, it's not gossip, it's an official military press release. For an instant, the entire world stopped. Could it be that we were finally facing proof that we are not alone? But wait a minute, why? The next day, did this story change completely? Suddenly, the same military officials say it was all a mistake, that there was no flying saucer at all. It was just a weather balloon. Yes, something so mundane that, theoretically, anyone could identify. Overnight, the truth turned into a joke. And you know what's worse? They didn't just give the explanation, they showed photos. Photos of officials holding metallic remains that, let's face it, didn't look anything like a common meteorological research object. But the order was clear. Ridicule the first version and bury any suspicion. Now, I ask you, why would someone announce a flying saucer, only to deny it so quickly? Was it an innocent mistake, or a calculated strategy to divert our attention? And what if I told you that the witnesses started to disappear, or rather, to change their stories? That unknown men, some call them men in black, Others say they were government agents, knocked on the doors of the people who saw the wreckage and said, "You saw nothing." Is it a coincidence that, after that, the silence lasted 30 years? No one talked about Roswell. It was as if everything had vanished from the collective memory. Until, suddenly, in the 70s, someone decided to break that pact of silence. But let's not jump ahead, because now I want you to think. If it really was just a weather balloon, why so much intimidation? Why so much secrecy? And why would this topic return with such force decades later, when Jesse Marcel, that same officer who collected the wreckage, decided to tell everything he knew? Yes, he spoke. And what Marcel said wasn't just controversial, it was explosive. He revealed that the balloon explanation was nothing more than a smokescreen, and it didn't stop there. Other witnesses began to appear, telling even more shocking things, including about strange bodies that didn't look human. And that's exactly what we're going to see next. The rebirth of the Roswell case, the bombshell confessions, and the first reports of aliens being taken away by the military. Reopening the case and new investigations, 30 years of silence. Until, in 1978, an interview would change everything. Nuclear physicist Stanton Friedman decides to investigate the forgotten history of Roswell. And who does he find? Jesse Marcel, the same officer who was at the ranch, touched the wreckage, and lived that mystery firsthand. And Marcel was no longer willing to keep the secret. He says, without hesitation, "What I saw was not of this world. The story about the weather balloon was a lie." Now, tell me, why would a man with a respectable career, decades later, risk his reputation to lie? What would he gain from it? Nothing. And yet, he told, but it didn't stop there. Other witnesses began to emerge. Some claimed something even more disturbing. They saw bodies, yes, bodies that didn't look human. Small beings, with large heads, immense eyes, and tight clothing. Imagine the scene. Military personnel rushing to remove the wreckage, and something being carried away under blankets. A common accident, or an event that could change the history of humanity. So, I ask you, if it was all just a military project, why would so many people, in different places, tell such similar stories? Coincidence, or truth leaking through the cracks? But that was just the beginning, because the 80s would bring something even more explosive. Pop culture taking over Roswell and turning the mystery into a global phenomenon. The pop culture explosion and the birth of theories, the 80s. Books begin to appear. Films and series explore the theme. The title that ignited the spark. The Roswell Incident, from 1980. From then on, Roswell was no longer a secret. It was an icon. But with the fame came increasingly darker theories. Have you ever heard of Majestic 12? A supposed secret group created to deal with alien technology, real story, or a well-constructed fiction to distract. And then Bob Lazar appears in 1989, saying he worked on reverse engineering of extraterrestrial crafts at the famous Area 51. Do you believe it, or do you think it's just another piece of the puzzle to keep us confused? And as if that weren't enough, in 1995 the alien autopsy video emerges. Do you remember that? The images shocked the world. Later, it was declared a hoax. But think, if it was just a fake, why did it affect public opinion so much? Could it be that someone wanted to discredit the topic on purpose? Because, in the end, the more you laugh, the less you ask. And when you stop asking, the secret remains safe. Now, hold on to this, because the government is going to try to end the controversy with an official explanation. But does that explanation really solve anything? The official explanations and Project Mogul. The 90s, the United States government decides to speak again. And, this time, it admits, we lied about the weather balloon. But hold on, don't get too excited. According to them, it wasn't an alien craft. It was part of Project Mogul, an ultra-secret operation to spy on Soviet nuclear tests using balloons with acoustic sensors. Makes sense, right? Or is it just another well-told story to keep us in the dark? And the alien bodies. That also had an explanation. They were dummies used in drop tests. Did that convince you? Or does it sound like someone rushing to put out a fire that won't stop growing? Because, even with this explanation, the questions continued, and the strangest revelations were still to come. Late revelations and extraordinary stories. We fast forward to 2008. A retired nurse named Matilda O'Donnell makes a bombshell confession. She says she cared for a being who survived the Roswell crash. His name, Earl. Earl, according to her, was not a common alien. He was a synthetic biological being, created to pilot crafts. And he revealed something unsettling. That Earth is, in fact, a kind of cosmic zoo, or even a prison for spiritual beings. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? Or is that exactly what they want you to think? Because if everyone laughs, no one will investigate. And here begins a new level of mystery. If Earl really existed, what else did the government hide? And how many other stories never reached the public? Other theories and parallel cases, and it doesn't stop there. Some theories reach the limit of the unimaginable. They say the bodies seen in Roswell were, in fact, grotesque human experiments, perhaps performed by Mengele himself after World War II. Horrible to think about, isn't it? But what if it were true? Another strange case, the saucer of Aztec. In 1948, a similar crash, with similar reports. Coincidence? Or a pattern that no one wants to admit? Even the FBI got into the story, releasing documents that mention flying saucers. But, of course, nothing conclusive. It's as if they're giving us crumbs, just to keep our curiosity alive. Cultural impact and the legacy. Today, Roswell is much more than a case. It's a cultural phenomenon. Museums, festivals, themed tourism. And, in the midst of it all, a question continues to echo. Was it really a contact with extraterrestrial life, or a game of historical manipulation to protect military secrets? Some say the story was ridiculed on purpose, to discredit any serious investigation. And, to make everything even more mysterious, in 2020, Donald Trump himself suggested that there are things about Roswell that cannot be revealed. Why? What is still being hidden? And, most importantly, will we ever know the truth one day? Or will it remain buried in the desert, along with the wreckage of something we should never have found? What topics would you like to see in the next videos? Let me know in the comments.